Hi there, it's Paul here from Volaticus, an aerial production company with a strong interest in aviation and flight simulation. Welcome on board today. We are going to do a flight from Boston to JFK, New York with the Boeing 767. So that is Boston, the MisterX6 scenery, which is free scenery on xplane.org, to John F. Kennedy Airport, which is paid scenery from Drzewiecki, and I hope I pronounced that correct. That's part of the 3 airport packs, New York 1, Volume 2. So that's part 1 is JFK, it's LaGuardia, and Trevero, I think it's called. So JFK is the sort of larger of the airports there. That's Volume 2. That's available to purchase from the X-Plane store. And then Boeing 767 by Flight Factor, available to purchase from the X-Plane store as well. So on routes and for planning, we used ForeFlight Basic, which is a planning and navigation app for pilots. Weight and fuel was calculated in SimBrief at simbrief.com. The flight log using the Volaticus Airline flight log form, which is available to download for free. So just have a look in the comments there. And maps and approach, again, ForeFlight Basic. So let's just switch to ForeFlight at this point and have a look at the route. So we start off at Boston. I'll just zoom in there. We're going to be departing using the SOX 5 departure to Birdie, then Juliet 121, down to the arrival at JFK. Just to catch up with the map there. We're going to shoot the Carmen 4 approach into JFK, going in the ILS 04 left at JFK. And that's the routing there. Okay, just so back up to the plan view there. So in terms of the weather, let's just have a quick look. So Boston, wind is 030 degrees, 19 gusting 26, so quite a strong wind for the northeast. We're going runway 04 right. Clouds scattered 3300. It's a sort of cloudy day. Altimeter's quite high pressure. Altimeter's 3045. Departing runway 04 right. And as I said, the SOX 5 departure routing. And then arrival into JFK. The weather at the moment, 03015, scattered 2600, altimeter 3043. So very similar to Boston, and approaching using the Carmen 4 approach, or arrival into the ILS 04 approach, landing runway 04 left. And there we are at Boston. So as I say, this is the MisterX6 scenery. It's free. It's fabulous, actually. Really good detailed scenery. Lots going on there. Lots of textures, which I think MisterX6 is reputed for. Let's go into the cockpit. So just a quick look in the overhead panel. I've gone through most of the pre-flight to the starting point. I haven't started the APUs yet. That will be the next thing I do. Just wanted to talk through the hydraulics all set, ready to go. Fuel pumps on, electrics ready to go. I've got the APU generator on, but we are on ground power and air at this point. Lights, just the wing lights. Correction, just the position lights. The wing lights are not needed today. Cargo heat will come on after we start up and before taxi. Window heat on as usual. Passenger signs on as usual. For landing at JFK, sets the landing altitude 10 feet. It's more or less sea level. And auto pressurization is set. Flight door is locked. Just check that. And the packs are on at the moment, driven off the ground air. And so when we start the APU bleed is actually ready for when the APU comes online. We'll do that in a moment. Let's have a look at the MCP. So we need to be above 4,000 as part of our departure routing. I'm just going to switch to the SOX departure there, and actually the next page there. So take off runway 4 right, climb 035, which is the course for the runway, to 520, and then direct H Nant, and then cross Herbie at or above 4,000. So I've set 5,000 as our altitude. Heading set 035, which is runway heading, and V2 is in the speed bug 150, and we'll climb out at V2 plus 15 approximately. The mode set, takeoff mode is set, flight directors on, auto throttle will be arms just before lining up. We've got VNav set, so that climbs to 5,000, manage the engines for us. LNav, well, we're going to do heading mode, which I've selected already. See heading select in the attitude director indicator. That will switch to LNav when we come en route, and that'll probably go on fairly shortly after takeoff. But the initial part of the SID for Boston is runway heading, so that's not an unreasonable setting there. I will do the initial climb to 1,000 feet manually and then switch the autopilots on. Pressure set 3045 on the altimeter, altimeter 22992. And you can just see the start of the routing there. In fact, what I'll do is just switch that on and we can just step through the routes and bring that up. And just get back to the routes page, legs page. So, okay, we haven't quite started at 04 right, but you can see where it's going. Runway heading to Nant, then Herbie or Fenway, Buckeye, Jester, and then that's the end of the SOX 5 departure, and then we go back up to Bordy and then down to Say. But what I'm going to do is try to go direct from Jester, which is just up here, and we'll try and go direct, start the star for JFK from there, to save a little bit of time. So Jester, we won't go to the next point, we'll go direct to Bordy, and then say HTO, Hofi, Shalep, Sardi, Dooney, HTO 5, Shell, Plume, Manta, Orphet. And you can see just in the top left, see the actual star into JFK. I'm hoping that ATC will be very kind to us and give us a bit of a shortcut, because the star almost takes us out as far as Boston, but in the opposite direction. Not quite, but nearly. So obviously, as cognizant pilots, we want to try to cut costs as much as possible. And it just takes us back more or less along the same way to the Cameron rather. And then Aroke is our IAF for the approach. Crystal, JFK land, and if we miss it, to the miss point at Duffy. And that's it. So let's set that back. Set the scale, probably 10, 20 will do. 20 miles scale, that is, for the navigation display. And let's just get this back to legs. Okay, what else have we set? Objective takeoff for departure, of course. Trim today, I did it slightly differently. I've set this up. I normally go through the full procedure. I wanted to save a little bit of time. What I did is I loaded the fuel and cargo first, which would be more realistic. And then I loaded the passengers afterwards. But I optimised the loading of the fuel and cargo, but didn't then re-optimise it for loading the passengers, if that makes sense. So just to explain what I'm on about, because you're probably wondering what on earth I'm talking about here. It's the loading the passengers here. 214 people on board, mostly in coach, a few in first class, some business class there, quite a lot of the first class empty, so quite rear heavy there. So the trim came out at 2.4. I could have optimized that, probably would have given us trim of 3.9 or something like that, but no, it'd be interesting to fly as is. We're using ground pressure and power at the moment, chocks in, usual sort of thing. What I will do is I'm just going to call for the pushback truck at this time. We'll switch to an outside view, and you can see, whoops, wrong key. No, that was the best one. You can see him just positioning himself with us now. Okay. So let's go back into the cockpit. So before we do anything, obviously a very, very easy thing to forget. Not that I've ever forgotten. Well, I just don't show you the videos where I've forgotten. I'm going to switch the APU on for the moment. Before we do that, just switch the red flashing light on. APU to start. And we're going to monitor that. Oh, I hate it when that happens. So APU spooling up there, the EGT rising, RPM going up. Give that a chance to go. And we should hear the clicking sound when that comes to life. And that's the point which we can consider pushing back. So the other thing happened on another flight is I had a bit of a problem with my throttle controller, actually the joystick part of the controller, not the actual aircraft, and I failed to notice that one of the engines was stuck on full, so I didn't go down too well when I started up. I had a bit of a control issue. So I'm gonna just make sure it does look fine today. You hear that click sound is a sure sign, hopefully, that the APU generator is online. And just a quick look on the messages here. It doesn't say generator offline, and it's up to about 640 on the EGT, which is what we want. So let's go up here now and switch ground power off. That's always cringe when I do that because there's a slight bug in this aircraft, or at least I've experienced something from time to time where it doesn't disconnect. Well, it does disconnect, but it doesn't actually switch over to the APU generator, but that does seem to be okay. Okay, so we've got APU generating. See, having got rid of external power. If we go up to the top now and open up the iPad, we can actually get rid of the high pressure and ground power units. Keep the chocks in for the moment. What I'm going to do then is just going to release the brakes. Doors are all closed, ready to go. I'll get the jetway out the way. And let's just have a look on ForeFlight again. So you see where we're parked now. We're actually at Bravo 32. I'm going to push tail to the left. The routing AT has given me for taxi is Alpha Alpha 2 Bravo direct 04 right. Okay, so that'll be tail left and then taxi down to the southwest on Alpha and then Bravo, and just continue down to the threshold 04 right. So fairly easy taxi. Okay, back to the top. Yes, less yapping and get on with it. Let's set this up for a pushback and engine start. So the packs come off and you see the duct pressure rising, which is great. The light is on. Hydraulic pressure warning lights, obviously, for the engine driven ones, as we would expect. And let's just go down here, and what we'll do is remove chocks. The brakes have come off, and get rid of the chocks and start pushback. There we are. Get rid of that for the moment. And engine 2 first of all. And switch to that mode. It's very slow today for some reason. Our brakes are off. Looking for 15%. And there we have it. Good light up. EGT rising to the yellow arc. N1 starting to spool up. Oh dear. I don't think any of the ground traffic is airport savvy at all at any of these airports. We'll just start spinning us around a little bit. How are we doing? Okay. Seem to have a good start on number 2. Let's have a go at number 1 now, starting. Okay, starting to rise. Looking for 15%. And there we have it. Good EGT light up. And that 04 right, just to the right of the aircraft there. And a little flickering in the CDU. Indicates the power has switched over onto engine 1. And we have a little bit of a problem there. That happens quite frequently. It's not really to do with the 767 so much as my throttle control stuck in reverse. Just going to keep an eye. That looks okay now, thank goodness. Okay. Good engine start. Just check for our orange lights. Packs are the only thing lit up there, so we switch the packs back to auto and hear the air conditioning pop back in there. So thorough scan now. We've got yaw dampers on, all hydraulic pumps, demand and pressure are on. Power, we've got APUs running still, so that can actually come off. And we'll leave the APU generator until it's spilled down. Left and right engine generators are on. Lights will leave off for the moment. Just move up a little bit. We're going to put the cargo heats on now. Starters can go to continuous for a departure. Fuel 14.1 exactly as planned, which is fine. Oh my goodness, we'll have to call the fuel truck. We just dropped a bit there. No, we can allow half a tonne for taxi. It's not a problem. Anti-ice not required today. Wipers not required. Landing lights will go on just before we line up after we have been cleared. Window heats are on. Passenger signs on. Pressurisation 10 feet. This is also a sea-based airport, so there's not really much difference in level. Flight door is locked. Cabin temperature 21 degrees should keep passengers nice and comfortable. We'll switch the air duct off from the APU, and we'll keep the isolation valves open, I think, for the moment. Let's have a look down here. So we've set the trim. The other thing we need to do is to set the flaps. So I can do this using my scroll wheel. That's 2 stages of flaps, and you can see the indicator moving there. Very difficult to see that from the captain's seat, but it's obviously much easier to see from this position. So it should go to 5 degrees, and we can check in the wing view as well. Why are the spoilers up? Probably because we had reversers on the left engine until I sorted that out. They just stay up until you bring them down. It's very difficult to see, but that is 5 degrees on the wings. So the only thing we should have is parking brake sign, which we have on at the moment. What else do we need to check? Decision height being set 300 feet. I'm going to go through the route a little bit on the journey. Trimmer sets. Transponder set for, well, I always leave it on 2000. It's on standby at the moment. It'll go to TARA when we're ready. Lift the arm up. ILS set 110.9. Course route 045 is the 04 left approach into JFK. Ident will come on when we're near Carmen. And that's it. Just some lighting now. We'd request taxi clearance. We'd be given Alpha 2 Bravo 04 rights. So do follow me on ForeFlight. So taxi lights coming on. Brakes coming off. I know what I've done. I know what I've done. I should definitely use checklists. It's driving me nuts actually when that happened. It's because I've still got the ground tow truck connected. So let them go, and you can see them going there. So yes, because when you put the throttle up and you start reversing with a pushback, that makes a lot of sense. So you shouldn't really, one of the checks is obviously to disconnect and the other check is to make sure they're clear. So I'm afraid I failed to do both of those. So I'm glad you guys are noting all my mistakes. Normally I'd hope to start making mistakes a little further into the flight, but I'm starting early today. And he's gone. They just disappear as if by magic. Okay, I think we're ready to taxi. Okay, so we're on Alpha. So that's Alpha 2 is the one on the left. That's where I'm going to turn. Just check the brakes. They work all right. And then a left turn. Let's make sure we're clear. It's very difficult to see in these aircraft. So we're going to do a right turn next. Just keeping an eye on the down here, my hydraulic display, because that is something that we'd want to be testing, make sure works. Obviously the first thing to make sure is we can stop this beast. And then we can check the rest of the controls. So let's check the ailerons left, centre, right, centre. Elevators check. Okay, pitch up, level, pitch down, level, and then return to the normal position. Just a quick check on the map. Okay, we're good. We're going to follow this down to the end and round to the left. Hopefully won't run into the sea. Just actually, while I've got the opportunity just to have a quick look out, there's really beautiful scenery. Especially this is free. I know MisterX6 has some packages for sale. I have bought all of those there. Equally good. So just a few more checks here. Okay, we're checking all the controls through their full movement. Oops. And make sure they return to centre, which they do. Okay, so we are crossing 04 left, so we'll assume we've been given permission to do that. And I am going to just set up our aircraft for our departure. A slight problem there. Have a very slight problem with the hydraulics. I'm just going to come up to the hold line and then check it out. So 4 left there. Actually, that is not 4 left, that is the taxiway mic. So just go past this point. This is the warning for sorry, that's a warning for 04 left that we just passed, and then the ILS hold short line. Assume we can go past that to the hold short. That's because when they're in inclement weather, aircraft can affect the sensitivity of the ILS, and when aircraft are relying on that down to minimums, there's a separate hold short point, so aircraft remain away from the landing area. So let's just park up here for the moment. I just want to see what is wrong up here. So this is our air-driven hydraulic pump. There it is. It's because I switched the isolation switch off. It's come back on now. So again, something quite small like that can really throw you. So it's really important to make sure that you still fly the plane, but we're on the ground. That's why I said let's pull up and sort that out. It's not something you want to deal with in the air. Let's have a look in the overhead now. So assume that we've been cleared to line up. So our landing lights can come on, taxis can come off. We've got the white strobe on, flight doors locked, packs off, continuous on the starters. Fabulous. Our transponder can go to TARA now. And you can see on the navigation display our route. So we're runway heading to Nantes, turning right to Herb. So I'm probably going to engage LNAV fairly soon after takeoff. I normally like to fly it manually for a bit. Okay, let's do this. Always good to check the final approach. As ATC sometimes screw up and pilots sometimes screw up. We'll start the clock as well. Just making sure. Another thing to make sure is you're definitely on the runway you thought. So all your calculations are based on that. So this is 04 right for Boston. Okay, auto throttle can be armed. I'm just going to zoom out on ForeFlight, and we can press one of our magic buttons. That screw there. Just confirm visually that's 4 right, which is, you can see the windsock on the left there. It's crazy. So we hopefully wind more us down the runway. You can see that on the navigation display. Gusting up to 26 knots. V1 and rotate. Positive rate gear up. And then up to about 18 degrees. So we're looking to hold about 165 or so. So that's the first point. There's 1,000 foot. Come down. Switch autopilot on now. And we can switch LNAV on as well. And let's get the CDU open as well. Let's watch the speed coming up. First stage of flaps 5 to 1 degrees. Always speed check first of all. Look at our wing views. Frame rate's not brilliant because I'm actually recording in 4K on this flight, but it's not too bad. And then second stage flap up. Packs can come on. And we are a few miles away from Nantes, looking for a right turn to follow the star. Very short flight in relative terms, especially if you manage to cut a corner. So that's why I had the instrument approach for JFK already sorted. We'll get the weather en route, obviously, to make sure that that runway is still favourable. There's a fairly strong wind. Has been like that for a while, so I'm pretty sure it's going to just continue. Let's get a wing view as we turn. So you see it's certainly gusting a little bit. It's going to freak some passengers out. Yeah, definitely keep the seatbelt sign on for a bit. So we're just approaching, we're 1,000 to go to 5,000 feet. And most change to speed, hold, altitude capture for the moment. Yeah, in and out of broken clouds exactly as per the weather forecast. So let's assume we've been told to climb to 10,000 feet at or. We can do that on the CDU. So we say speed 316. 10,000. Okay, now it won't do anything until it gets to that point. That's the point it starts that climb. But it will not climb above the level we put in here anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put let's put 10,000. Assume that's a fixed restriction there. Okay, further turn now as it climbs. So we're still below 10,000. Hence the speed restriction of 240, which we could override as well. Ooh, this is going to be bumpy for passengers. There's going to be some stiff drinks after we break through the cloud layer on this flight. Which we've just done. There we go. Weather very similar in JFK, of course, not really that far away. Cloud base a little lower. There we go. We keep the seatbelt signs on until we get to top of climb. So at the moment we are, you see the CDU Jester to SOX S and then Birdie. But what I'm going to do, I'd like to go direct from Jester to Birdie. Of course I won't be able to do that without ATC permission, but I imagine they would probably want to do that as well. It just gets us on our way a little quicker. So let's do that now. Assume we've got that permission. Click birdie, replace SOX, we're not going there, and execute. And you can see on the map, on the navigation display, that we get to gesture and we turn direct, then direct to birdie. And if I just zoom out a little bit on the navigation display, you can see what's happening there. Gets us on our route quicker. So just arrived at 10,000. Let's give ourselves a further climb. Let's say flight level 180. Well, actually it's 18,000, isn't it? So I'm used to Europe flight levels down as low as 40, I think. Sorry guys. Right, passing 10,000 feet, we can switch starters to auto. We can switch landing lights off. If I can work out how to click them. APU is off, the generator can come off now. I'm going to keep the seatbelt sign on until the top of climb. Everything else looks fine. Packs are on. Passengers happy. Zoom out a little bit on ForeFlight. So now, ForeFlight, very important point here is ForeFlight is flying the original route, just to set SOX, birdie. I'm going to leave that as is. Actually, it's slightly less easy to edit, in my opinion, on the flight than the CDU in the aircraft, which kind of makes sense. But the reason for that is when you put your flight plan in, so you see we've put the flight plan in 04 right departure SOX S5 to SOX S. It's the end of that departure, then birdie. That first green thing is non-editable, at least I can't see any way of editing it, whereas on the CDU everything's editable. But it won't really care as long as we end up on the right track. Let's give ourselves a further climb, flight level 220. And once we're cleared, even though we're below that transition altitude of 18,000 feet, we can set 2992 on here. Just wait for the needle to go past, otherwise it's going to constantly obliterate my view. Oops. So, magic screw number 2. Sets the altimeter on the first officer's side, and I like to set the previous pressure for the airfield on altimeter 2, which is 3045. Can't remember the cruise. 320. Okay. So that's gonna. Top of climb is going to come quite late on this flight, I think. There it is, just near Say. And that's based on our current... I think it's based on our current altimeter setting. So you see on ForeFlight we're going direct gesture to birdie, we're not going down to SOX S. No, I think that top of climb is actually based on our final flight level. Let's set that up now, 320. Should be about right for this flight. It isn't a massive flight really. It's made longer simply by the arrival routine to JFK. Okay. So let's just bring up the little built-in iPad. I keep forgetting it's down there actually. I keep going to the menu, which is a real pain. Actually, one thing I did notice on this, and it may be a little Mac thing, but when you bring up over the CDU, can be impossible to move it. Let's see if I can replicate that. Actually, I can't drag it. That's it. I can't drag it any further than this while the CDU is over there. It's a bit of a conflict. So I'm positioning it just up to the top there. Okay, just arriving at Birdie, turning to save VOR. 9,000 to go on the height. Let's get a quick wing view. There we are, above that cloud layer. And we'll just well, make sure, yeah, everything on there is fine. And the next one is descent, that's fine. Just switch it off. I normally do the checklist items from memory, but I do forget occasionally. Okay, so off to the in the sort of 2 o'clock position is Providence. Or I assume that's Providence. Rhode Island. Yeah, that would be Providence. So if we have a look at the cruise, it will show us optimal flight level between 360 and 400. So just look at where the top of climb is. Can't see the top of descent anywhere near. We could actually climb up a little bit more. Zoom out a little bit. Yeah. I think we'll just maintain 320. So estimating our arrival into JFK at 1857 Zulu, that will factor in this enormous overrun. There's JFK there in the centre of the screen. You can follow that out almost down to Washington. That's quite a long route. What I'm hoping to do is to get to Manta, go direct Carmen or Cameron. Obviously that route is set up in case they have a lot of inbound traffic, which obviously busy times you're not going to be able to get a corner cutting courtesy such as that, but we'll assume it's a quieter time today. Now I am on a Juliet airway. It does say 18,000 feet, so I'm flying well above that. Let's have a look at the charts now. That's the approach. So that starts at Aroke, which we saw on the map view just a moment ago, and that's direct onto the final approach. There are 4 left for Kennedy. So this scenery, as I say, is the part of the trio of New York airports, Volume 1, Version 2. And I just want to show the difference that makes. Quite I'd say it's really good scenery. It's much more detailed. I mean, the stock scenery is terrible, if I'm to be honest. It's absolutely terrible, and it's infinitely better. Gives you LaGuardia as well, which is of course next door, which is fantastic. So either of those would be useful in this aircraft. So just getting a little warning up on ForeFlight to set the ATIS for Kennedy 12872. Now, because of our routing, because we go quite a long way past it, you might pick it up earlier. Sometimes you don't get it until I thought I was stuck in a minute. 12872. Switch over. Yeah, sometimes you don't get to it really near, but as we're flying fairly close to it, I'm hoping we will get that as we fly past it, rather than 3 minutes before landing, which is the usual process. I can look on ForeFlight as well, but there does seem to be a discrepancy between what I get on ForeFlight, which will be accurate weather, and what I get in X-Plane, which probably won't be because it's not safety critical. But as I'm flying the sim, I have to go with what I get out of X-Plane as the primary weather. Just check in though. JFK weather 05016, so assuming it's remaining the same, that's going to favour 04, which is actually 045 course. It's more or less down the runway. Scattered 3700 broken, 4700 broken, 6000. Altimeters, similar pressure setting to Boston. And actually, when I was looking on this earlier, there was a little bit of there was a NOTAM affecting one of the runways here. I think it was 13 or 31 right was closed by NOTAM, but that's since opened. So ForeFlight's fabulous, really gives you up-to-date NOTAMs displayed where you want them. Displayed on the runways page in this case, because it affected the runway. Click on the NOTAMs tab, it tells you any other information you might need to know. Right, up at 320, flight level 320. Next thing we need to do is just quickly check our descent profile. Just having a quick look at the levels. It's actually suggesting 360 on here, so I think I'm going to press that from ATC. Okay, that button doesn't work. Let's set 360 here. Of course, it'll hold our present altitude. And I think what we need to do is just type it in here, 360, flight level, there we are. So I've got to climb now to that level. So just passing, say, VOR. Obviously it's updated the top of climb as well. One thing I have noticed is when you change the top of the climb unexpectedly, like that, it sometimes doesn't tell you to check your target altitude for the descent. And now it's updated, it's saying 400 step climb. I think we'll leave that at 360. Bear in mind we're going to be chopping several miles off the route if we're going to go direct to Cameron. Let's see how how we're doing with the winds. So a more of a crosswind than anything, just a 3 knot headwind, so that's not bad. True speed 475. So 1856 Zulu time into JFK. Probably more or less it. We might arrive a little earlier because we're going to chop a bit of the route off. Normally you have to add a bit of time on because it doesn't factor certain things in, and of course that's not your arrival at the gate either. That's your kind of your touchdown point almost. Okay, 1,000 to go for the top of climb. Flight level 360 reached. So that's New York scenery pack. I haven't bought any of the designer's work in the past. Did appeal because there's 3 airports included in that $24 on the X-Plane store. It seemed pretty good value actually, and I thought, well, if one of those airports is good, then it's kind of worth it on its own, and I bought it, and well, you can see for yourself. I was quite impressed, and I actually showed you an image comparison earlier of how that compares with the stock, which was not very good. So if you're this is the first one of my videos you've seen, I use ForeFlight extensively for navigation. So this is a real world pilot's navigation and planning app. It's just as adept at airline flying as any other tool. Really, it is aimed at GA pilots, but they have a they're sort of breaking into this sort of bigger executive jet and sort of airline market. It's certainly one of my favourite packages to use. It comes in 3 flavours. The basic pack is about $100, and that's what I'm using at the moment. They occasionally will upgrade me so I can profile some of the other features. The main difference, if I was to give you a sort of 10-second difference between the basic level and the next level up, is the next level up will show you approach charts, as seen here, actually on the map. Nothing more needs to be said. It's fantastic. You get much better situational awareness if you're training IFR pilot, or just like me, a sort of leisure IFR pilot. Then it's incredibly valuable to get that displayed on the map. Gives you a real sense of position and a better understanding of what you're doing. The other thing is, if you switch to the chart view, assuming we were actually flying this approach right now, you'd actually see the little aircraft on that approach. So it's probably a better view actually, that one. So I'm hoping to do some more flights with that. As I say, this is the basic package. The one that also gives you the basic pack just gives you the maps. That gives you all the charts, but it doesn't give you a position on the charts or maps on the charts on the maps. The middle level does, and it also gives you synthetic vision, and I can call that up here, but there's no subscription to it. It basically shows you, if the subscription had included it, it would actually show you terrain. It's particularly useful when you're lower down, of course, and not just terrain, also obstructions like mountains that show you masts, high buildings that are notable in a sort of 3D environment. Really, really handy. It's useless though without having that terrain data. And then the top package is $300, so it's 100, 200 and 300. That includes a huge amount of performance data. That's really aimed at operators, very serious sort of piloting. I don't think there's any value for a sim flyer at that level, but certainly package 1 or 2, $100 or $200 adds immense value to the simmer. Right, let's set up our potential descent. I can see that we're meant to be up 400. As I say, we are not going to fly that that far out, so we're going direct to Cameron. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set 10,000 as an initial descent. So Cameron, you see it on the second line there, and all of that I'm chopping out, going from Manta, I think I said. Yeah, Manta, or maybe even Plume, direct Cameron. No, let's go down to Manta, give us a sort of bit of room. I'll leave that in there for the moment. So we'll assume that we've requested that from ATC but not been given it, so we're flying the original route. But what I will do is I will set that up. I want to know what altitude we're meant to be at Cameron. It says 7605. Let's set 10,000 on our MCP. Now nothing will happen, of course, but if we now flew direct to Cameron, it would recalculate our descent profile and say, hey, actually we need to be descending now. What I'm also going to do, we're not going to get the ACES until we're much nearer. I'm just going to grab that from ForeFlight again. That's updated 18 minutes ago, so fairly current. And altimeter 3044. And what I do is use altimeter 2 as a kind of aide-memoire. Right, you can see we scrolled off the, where the aircraft is. You're looking at the sort of future point of the map. And actually, it's not a bad view there. I was going to say, actually, if you click the icon top right, it actually centres on our aircraft. But that is quite useful because you see where we're going. And actually, that map encapsulates absolutely everything we need to know about where we're going. So what I want to know, yeah, see, we're still at flight level 400 at Manta. We would want to start descending a lot before that. There's just not, I don't think there's enough time really to be descending 40,000 feet at Manta to get down to sea level at JFK. Probably need to look at where we'd need to start a descent on this route. So I'm just looking ahead at the other points on the map. Probably Dunny, start a descent to 20,000 from there, under ATC instruction, of course. That would also be assuming we've been permitted to do that corner cutting. So we will do that. And so I could actually type that in. Let's put keyboard mode on. And what I'm going to do, actually, I want to start the descent at Dunny. I don't want to be at flight level 200 at that point. So let's try and let's aim to be there by Manta.
Kennedy into information, Whiskey 1700 Zulu weather. Wind 050 at 14. Visibility more than 10. Sky conditions 2600 broken. 4600 broken. 6600 broken. Temperature 5. Dew point -1. Altimeter 3022. Arriving runways 13 right, 13 left. Departing runways 13 right, 13 left. Advise on initial contact to have Whiskey.
no idea why that's not working. Okay, well, never mind.
Kennedy Intel Information Whiskey 1700.
So let's make a quick note of the ATIS that's coming through here.
14. Visibility more than 10. Sky conditions 2600 broken. 4600 broken. 6600 broken. Temperature 5. Dew point -1. Altimeter 3022. Arriving runways 13 right, 13 left. Departing runways 13 right, 13 left. Advise on initial contact.
Okay, that's really unusual. I just want to check something at Kennedy. So this is on ForeFlight. This is live. They're giving wind 05014, which is kind of what we're guessing on ForeFlight. But giving landing runway 13 left or right doesn't make any sense at all. It's like a complete crosswind. Saying that, that would put us out of limits. So I'm going to stick with 04 left. I'm going to assume that's just an explained bug. It's crazy to be landing. Absolutely crazy to be landing with that kind of crosswind. And there's no term saying it's closed. Just checking actually my Boston. It's saying it's light snow at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I am going to start a descent at Dooney, and I'm going to do that by flight change. What I could do is possibly set a lower cruise altitude to 200. I'll do that now actually. And then it will actually start a slow descent. Just going to make another change here because I'm not happy about losing so much speed. That's better. What it was doing is it was reducing the speed to Mach 0.61 for some reason, which was no need to really. So I'm just command it on the descent, well on the cruise, say Mach 0.75, which it's now more or less at. No point in slowing up so much. And see if we can change this as well to be at flight level 200 at Manta. I'm just going to have another go at that. So we can say 0.6. Oops. /flight level 200. I need to put the S in there. I don't know. But what we can do is we can set our cruise altitude from here, and then when we get below flight levels we can set that manually. That's normally when I'm setting it manually anyway. But let's assume that we've been told to fly to Manta, then direct Cameron. Okay, so there's Manta there, so we're going to delete everything after Manta. And this is where things will change. Pick up Cameron, it puts it down here. And then just after Manta, execute. So now it's a different story. Direct to Plume, it's a very different story. So we've got 10,000 bugged there. Probably going to, hasn't asked us yet for additional drag, but we're obviously not going to make 15,000 by Plume, and 10,500 by Manta is a bit of a push. So these figures, when they're not in bold, are kind of, well, a rough calculation. They're not mandatory. If you want to make them mandatory, we can overwrite it. I'm just going to use the keyboard here. So say at Cameron, we want 240 speed, and we want I don't know, 8200 feet. So we are telling it we do definitely want that, and that should be quite reasonable. Then it's got quite a route to Aroke, which is our initial point on the chart. You can see it there. Well, on the descent profile there it is, the IF, and we're going to be about 2,000 for that. So it's 2,000 A, that's what the A means. And then Crystal, and then landing 69 feet for left. Oops. So the other thing came out of the ATIS, which was a little surprising, is the discrepancy with the altimeter setting. And I'm just going to go over to ForeFlight, and that is still reading A3. There's 20 millibars difference, or 20 units of inches of fathoms, or squared hectares of mercury, or whatever the US system is. Different. Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude about it. So we want to set that on the bug here. .3024, I think it was. Let me just check.
Kennedy into information whiskey 17.
And we'll switch that over to the altimeter 1 when we get below 18,000 feet, or at 18,000 feet. So that's quite a saving on the journey. So it was 1856, it has dropped to 39, so nearly 20 minutes saved. And you see on ForeFlight's our turn now. We've obviously come off the route because ForeFlight has the original plan in. There's absolutely no interface between ForeFlight and the 767, of course. Can be a little bit of a pain to keep updating it, but it's not always necessary, as in this case. What we'll do is I'm going to just scale up a little bit. Sent checks. Pressurization for landing. 10 feet, set, auto, recall, jet, auto brake. Well, it's a long runway. I'm just going to leave it and just brake manually. Landing data, that's one thing we do need to know. VREF 139. What we can do is copy it, paste it, and it then appears. Well, you won't see it until the descend at to the right point, but 139 is now on a speed bug, and we are checked. And approach briefing. That's vectors through Cameron, direct to Roke for the ILS-04 left. If we crash, passengers should exit before the captain. If you see me leaving, then assume role of captain. Okay.
Traffic.
What I am going to do is try and assist this descent a little bit, because it's just not enough. So I've just switched to vertical speed mode, taken VNav off. We're still flying the LNav, but I'm just a little concerned about it actually arriving anything like a 2000 at Roke, and I'm probably going over the top a little bit. But let's give ourselves assume that we've been descended down to 5,000 feet. And what will happen is it will stay at 3,000 feet a minute descent until it hits 5,000 or near to 5,000 and levels off at that altitude. So you see on the vertical speed indicator 3,000 being held at the moment. You also see the speed has crept up a little bit here. So I'm just going to use some air brakes. I'm a little surprised actually it wasn't asking for some air brakes earlier. We still have 25 miles to go to Roke, but we have quite a bit of height to lose. We have quite a bit of height to lose, and we have a bit of speed to lose as well. We need to be almost half this speed. So just thinking ahead a little bit. So just dropping below 20,000, I am now going to set 3023 up here. That's our land, that's airfield's pressure setting. So there it is. Altimeter 2, 2992. 2. And magic screw gets rid of yellow messages. Because when you get to 10,000, obviously it's going to want us to start slowing down even further. We've actually told, or it's been computing 170 at Roke for the approach. Roke, we're okay. So I might actually just descend us a little bit more. Be a little uncomfortable on the passengers, but I'm sure they'll understand. So we left the seatbelt sign on anyway, but that would definitely be on at this point. What I will do is put the starters to continuous. Everything else is good. Actually, at this point, just switch the landing lights on as well. So 4,000 feet a minute. We are ground speed, bit of an awkward ground speed really, but about just over 6 miles a minute. So just probably 2 minutes to actually reach that Roke at the current speed. I'm going to bring a little bit more air brake in. And then 6 miles. It's probably not the most comfortable flight on Earth, but we saved the airline a fortune. I should probably have started this descent 5 minutes beforehand. There you go. Now fighting with the autopilot because it's wanting to speed up to maintain the speed. But what we could do actually is we could say, no, if you want to slow this thing up a bit, let's go back to 240. Don't fight me, work with me, buddy. And we'll bring the air brake in even further. So this is probably a good point to it's probably a good point to ident the ILS. Okay, so that is that one. It's working fine. And we'll assume we've been told to go down to 3,000. So we've got the localizer and the see the well above the glide slope at the moment, as you'd kind of expect. Oops, didn't need to do that. And what we can do is just allow it to turn us onto the final approach course. And the glide slope's starting to come up now, as you can see. We probably need a little bit more. What I could do actually, and will do that, is I'm going to stick the gear just on the edge of that, but it acts as a fantastic air brake, which is something we need, I'm afraid. It was, yeah, 275 is the limit for that, so it's right on the edge. But you know, its limits are there for a reason. So it's starting, should start our turn in now. Air brake coming back. Out hold is set. And we'll switch, well, we'll let that turn us and then switch us to localizer mode. So turning there, you see the localizer coming in from the left. And let's give ourselves a further descent to 2,000. And let's do that manually. And while we're over there, we can switch the localizer on. Because we also need to start slowing this thing down. So let's put 190 in there. And in fact, what I can do is we're actually on the glide slope. Go straight onto approach mode. Glide slope is captured. And first stage of flap about to come in. There he comes. Okay, airport's in sight. So we've got glide slope and localizer, both armed and speed controlled by the MCP. This brings us down to 175. Second stage of flap, that's 5 degrees coming in now, and each stage of flap adds more and more drag, of course. First two stage add quite a bit of lift, but beyond that it's mostly drag. so I was able to put speed brakes away. Can't quite see the city, Manhattan, from there. So a little bit more speed brake now. And I'm going to keep the speed brake out. Actually, we need to come down to 139, which is our VREF. Next stage of flap. We get that warning because speed brake's being used at slower speed, I think, or it might be lower. Speed brake used at lower altitude. That's fine. You can acknowledge that.
1,000.
Another stage of flap. And another stage. But nicely positioned for landing. Coming back to 139. Okay, let's disengage the autopilots at this point and take the auto throttle off as well. And we're full flap. We have visual with the runway. 500 feet to go. You do get annunciator from ForeFlight, but it uses the GPS altitude. We're a little bit below the glide, but very small changes at this point. A bit fast as well, so just come back on the throttle a little bit. Runway's clear. Wind more or less down the runway, 14 knots. That's making it easy.
Minimums.
Speed's dropped a little bit. Should be 139 VREF.
Light slope.
Yeah, thanks for telling me. There it is.
$100. $50. $40. $30. $20. $10.
Why, thank you. Frame rate's suffering a little, but it's not too bad. It's actually I think for the visual fidelity of this airport, it's pretty good. So we'll just get clear and then we can clean up. So one thing happens with ForeFlight when you get below a certain speed is it will automatically bring up the ground chart, which is fabulously useful. Brakes on. But I I think if you've got the mid or top package, that's great because you'll see your position on there. But you can zoom into them on the map and actually get sort of dynamic display of your position, which is the one I prefer. Okay, let's just go through the after landing checks. Okay, not on there. I think I need to go through the amplified procedures. Hang on, where are we? Okay, I don't think I'm going to have anything on here. I normally do this from memory anyway. So, starting at the top, your dampers can come off. APU to start. Oops. Generator on. Lights off. White light can come off, red light stays on. Starters to auto. Cargo heats off. No heat can stay on. Seatbelt sign stays on. And you can see we're at ground level pressure. Flight door remains locked. And APU air bleed can come on at this point as well. Okay. MCP's flight director can come off. I don't know why I switched that on again. Auto throttle should remain off. Speed brake, I'll just return that. That stays on because of the reverse thrusters. And also our transponder can go to standby. There we go. And we're ready to taxi. So what we'll do is we will taxi on, zoom in a little bit on here, shows you Bravo. We'll take Bravo, Juliet, Alpha, and then we'll find a space on there. Okay, now once we're cleared taxi, switch the taxi lights on, of course. And while I think about it, let's get the second page up. Alright, take Alpha. I think that's what I said. So lots of static aircraft here, as you might expect. It's a shame really that X-Plane doesn't support that much in the way of dynamic traffic. See some gates over there. Really nicely modelled compared with stock, I've got to say. So plan is right onto, well actually we're on Alpha, we don't need to turn on to Juliet, we can just do the first right here, that's Alpha. So while we taxi in, hope you enjoyed the flight today. I will be obviously doing more flights. I'm going to be getting some more scenery. If you are a scenery producer who'd like me to try out your scenery, I don't really do formal reviews. I just put it to the test by doing a flight with it, as I'm doing here. It's a good way for people to see the scenery other than the pictures that you might put onto various websites. Same goes for aircraft as well. I tend to buy the scenery and aircraft myself. although I've not got a huge amount. Basically, the flight factor 767, and a handful of scenery packages. Certainly always willing to do reviews. Obviously, I'd prefer to sort of do independent reviews. Certainly wouldn't want to get sways or think anyone was swaying my opinion. But saying that, I'm not really doing a formal review of the scenery. Okay, thank you. Did get that actually. It's probably because I'm running full resolution. That warning message about not rendering a decent frame rate. I mean, this is quite a frame rate hungry scenery pack, as is any of the big airports. Now, one little trick I like to do at this point is to go into camera mode and then get an idea as to where we're going to park. So I'm probably going to take the second right. It's not so easy to fly from a sort of drone perspective. So I'm going to do a right into here, I think, and park straight ahead. It's probably not the best place. They do actually list, the scenery producer does list some spaces suitable for different types of aircraft. Actually, that's probably not big enough, actually, come to think of it. Just going to put the parking brake on here a moment. Normally, as a real pilot, you wouldn't really have this problem. Just see, maybe park next to that aircraft over there. Let's do that. The other thing to say actually regarding frame rate is that because I'm recording this in 4K, actually 5K, on a Mac, pretty well top of the range Mac, but it's obviously doing a huge amount of work to both render the screen and record. So this performance isn't indicative of what you'll get at this airport. Normally I record them in HD for that reason, but I thought, you know, on this occasion it'd be nice to have this at a decent resolution. Okay, got it. So there's no marshallers or anything here. I'm quite used to the MisterX6 scenery, and you get marshallers or you get gate assist or whatever it's called, but there's nothing here. Maybe his auto gate add-on is possible. Just need to find out how to add that. Slow right up at this point. Another thing I've just noticed, very naughty, flaps should be up, so get those up now. Okay, taxi lights can come off, that can come off, APU is running, so we can go and kill the power. So seatbelt sign can come off now. And just go through switching everything off. Leave the rear left pump on. It's off. So we've got duct pressure, which is good. So that's all set up there. We can undo the flight deck door. Just check down here. Yeah, looks good. So let's go ahead and undo the door. I always like to look at the pressurization when we do that. Particularly this one here, which shows us a change in pressure. So we open the front door. But that was set pretty well perfectly. Sometimes that swings around a little bit as it equalises the pressure. What we do need to do is get chocks in, gate configuration, we'll get ground pressure and air. Well, we'd have the fuel truck, but going off to play golf, so I don't care. And we can, with the doors open, we can unload the plane. So say bye-bye to the passengers. So that's it. That's it. The flight from Boston to JFK. I'm just going to go into camera mode very quickly. The last thing I do. And just give you a little bit of a tour. So really nice, lovely scenery. Let's just fly out to the north here. And so I was amused by this bit here. There's a hangar which you could actually fly the plane into. Open hangar and fly it through. So that'd be quite neat to do one day. Lots of the industrial areas around JFK represented by the looks. And the road network. There's also a monorail service that runs around. Certainly at this altitude the roads and everything are great. If you get lower, you see then the quality's not great, but if you're this low you wouldn't be worrying about the quality. So even a helicopter at this height is quite decent. So it does seem to be frame rates friendly, which is good. So the cargo boys over here. And some beautiful modelling of the buildings. I haven't been to JFK for a long time, so I'm assuming this is all accurate, but it's really lovely. And then the control tower up here. Actually, when I first installed it, I was parked over here, one of these open areas, and on the stock scenery, I bought it, the scenery, installed it, and then went back to where I was parked. And I was thinking, oh, you're joking, a building's missing. But no, it's absolutely accurate. So that's it. Thanks for being on board today. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. Please click like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please join me on other flights if you do want any product reviewed, particularly if you're the producer or would like me to just use it in a flight. Please do get in contact and I would be very happy to set a flight up. I am looking to purchase another aircraft next, probably the Rotate MD-80. I need something slightly smaller that can get into shorter fields and is sort of more adept for the sort of flying that I'm doing. So I will certainly produce a video when I get that. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Take care.